Welcome back, everybody, to this week's episode of the DCL Duo Podcast, brought to you by My Path Unwinding Travel. And today it's only me, but I'm coming to you live and in color. Also coming to you live and in color with two guests. So, hey, we're moving into video. We're finally embracing the 19th century technology of photography and video, embracing it warmly. And so for those of you listening at home on your favorite podcast player, if you want to head over to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/DCL Duo, and subscribe, you can start to see the podcast live and in color. Hopefully, we're going to give this a shot. But if you prefer to just listen to audio and you don't really want to see my ugly mug, you don't have to see it either. You can just listen on your favorite podcast player going forward. So with that, I've got two fabulous guests with me. I want to welcome Gayle and Kara back to our show. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi, Brian.
Excited to have you back. And today, we were joking off air. We're going to be talking about sailing in a hurricane. Now, you actually weren't sailing in a hurricane. I also just want to say up front, Hurricane Ian was a big deal, and our thoughts go out to everyone who was impacted in that hurricane. And there are lots of great ways that you can donate and give back to help those folks. So not at all making light of the damaging impact that Ian had, but we did want to hear what the experience was like on board a Disney ship that is sailing while a hurricane is occurring back in Port Canaveral in Florida. And Gayle and Kara just happened to be on the Disney Wish while that was happening. And so we have them here today. Before we dive in, Gayle, you've been on the show before. Kara, you've been on the show before. But let's recap your Disney Cruise Line experience for our audience so they have your Disney Cruise Line cred. So, Gayle, why don't we start with you?
Sure. We actually started sailing Disney Cruise Line together in 2006. I was not keen to return to cruising based on a prior experience, but my best friend Kara said, let's try it. And I said, I will only try it if we try it with Disney. And boy, was she right. And so for me, that was 2006 and 17 cruises ago to the Bahamas, Western Eastern Caribbean, Pacific Coast, repositioning, Mexico, the Mediterranean. But Kara has one very special sailing that I do not.
Yeah, I am 2 sailings behind Gayle. I only have 15. She's gone on 2 that I haven't, but I also did the inaugural Alaskan. She was in Europe with some students. I always forget to tell that part, so I remembered it this time. And I took my parents on the inaugural to Alaskan, which was an awesome voyage.
What a gift. What a gift, the inaugural Alaska voyage. I have to be nicer to my elders, I suppose. But, well, that's fabulous. Lots of Disney Cruise Line experience between the two of you, which is amazing. Let's talk about the sailing that you were on, and it's recent. So you were on the Disney Wish for what was supposed to be a 4-night sailing, I believe?
That's correct.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And where, obviously leaving out of Port Canaveral, going to the Bahamas and Castaway Cay, when was the sailing specifically?
So I think it's important to know that it was leaving on a Monday because time started to lose all meaning during this cruise. So we left on September 26th, and we had booked it on opening day back, I believe it was May 21st of 21.
Okay. And let's talk about, heading into the cruise. The hurricane kind of was a known thing that was coming, and I think trajectory of it was in question still and things like that. But what were your thoughts heading into a cruise, knowing that Ian is out there brewing, and I think it had already impacted Puerto Rico probably at that point. And so what was your planning like heading into that? Kara, let me ask that to you first.
We knew that we were likely going to be impacted by it. We didn't know sort of which side of the state it would hit and if it would close Canaveral or not. We didn't really worry too much about it. We were booked on Southwest Airlines to come home, and we knew that they have fairly friendly policies if we needed to rebook. And for this trip, Gayle had travel insurance. I didn't. So we kind of took our chances with that. We have lots of friends and family in the area. So if for some reason we just couldn't get a flight out, we knew we'd have a place to stay. I even put something on Facebook that hey friends, if we get back on Friday and we can't fly home and we can't go anywhere, who's got a room for us? So we did think about that, but we also were on a cruise was that 2008?
2010.
In 2010, where we got delayed by a day and had an extra day on the ship. And so we kind of knew how Disney handled it. And so we weren't that worried about it. We knew Disney would take care of us one way or the other.
Well, I think the other thing was we were flying into Orlando 2 days early. And at that point, all accounts were that it was going to go up the West Coast. So I honestly didn't give much thought to it whatsoever until we really started heading toward embarkation day.
Yeah.
How early before the cruise did you get in?
We flew in first thing Saturday morning with a
Monday
departure,
okay.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did you stay at Disney before the cruise, or did you stay someplace else?
Yep.
At Disney. Okay.
Yep,
Were the hotels already planning? Were the hotels already planning at that point for closures and things like that? Or was it still kind of out there what was going to happen?
It didn't feel like it. I had heard people had been making cancellations and weren't coming down. We were at Boardwalk Villas and everything seemed to run as normal as could be at that point.
The all-important question I think folks might want to know, did you or did you not have travel insurance for this sailing?
So I did, and normally that means we both would. And for some reason, Kara sort of missed pulling the trigger on that.
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't, other than Gayle didn't sort of hound me about it. So Gayle is the responsible party in this tag team of travelers, and I just didn't worry about it. We also had, and I will say this, we had a situation with another cruise that got delayed because of my work. And it took us a long time to get the reimbursement from the travel company. We knew, I was pretty sure the cruise wasn't going to get canceled, which was the only thing I really worried about. Again, because we were on Southwest Airlines, because it was Florida, I got a feeling they would drive to Florida because it was Disney. Like, I didn't really worry about it that much with this one. Had we been going to Europe or something like that, yeah, I'd worry about it. But then we wouldn't have, I don't think, got impacted by a hurricane. So
I do typically encourage folks, look into the travel insurance. It's never, I agree with you. Disney does a lot of the right things 99% of the time, but you may also be dealing with an airline or a non-Disney resort hotel or things like that. And I always say look into it. If you're traveling often enough, we carry an annual policy for our travel. It covers just about
this was
everything.
the last trip of my annual policy as well.
Yeah.
And it would have been the last trip on my annual. I didn't take it out this time.
And those annual policies can be very cost effective if you're traveling enough, right? So
yeah,
I always tell people, read the fine print on what is and what isn't covered, because I almost re-upped our annual travel policy with an existing provider and figured out that they were not providing COVID coverage to residents of the state of Washington. And so went with another provider until they bring back that coverage. But yeah, always read the fine print, know what's covered and what's not. So, well, you show up, you get on board. I guess at what point in the sailing, well, actually, let me step back. So you show up, you get on board. Gosh, remind me, you have or have not been on the Wish before? Neither of you. So this is a first time.
Nope.
What a first time on the Wish. Wow. Okay. So tell me about first impressions of the Wish when you got on board.
Kara, go ahead.
It's beautiful. This ship is absolutely gorgeous. The Grand Hall, if you've been on the other ships, the atrium, it's the Grand Hall on the Wish. It's 3 levels. It's stunningly beautiful. There's some live entertainment that's happening all hours of the day in the Grand Hall. The theming throughout the ship is spectacular. There are, and I think we'll probably talk about this later, but there are a couple little nuances that I don't like, but in general, I loved this ship. In terms of navigation, which I know a lot of people hate, I found this ship ridiculously easy to navigate.
I had my challenges with navigation, so I can understand where it's coming from, but I think it was more baked in. I know what this should look like if I was on the dream or the fantasy or the wonder, the magic, and less like, so I abandoned that and just started using like, let me look at the map and where I am and where I need to go and, and I will get there.
But, and so Gayle, Gayle's the travel agent among the two of us. She had studied, she knew every detail of the ship. You had two families that cruised before us?
Yes.
One family, 2 cruises before us, I think. So she had to know the Wish inside and out beforehand. I didn't. And I think what made it easier for me is the non-midship stairs, because I knew if I was on the blue stairs, I was in the back of the ship. And if I was on the green stairs, I was in the front of the ship. And I didn't get confused at midship. And so that, for some reason, just was easier for my brain to navigate. I still can't tell you which one, where the Enchanted Cafe, the Enchanted Sword Cafe, and there's another one that starts with an S. I can't tell you which deck they're on now, but I knew when we were on the ship. That's all that mattered.
Yeah. There's the sword and there's the shield. Yeah. Or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah. So many coffee bars, so many more coffee bars on that ship. Gayle, first impressions of the Wish for you.
Oh, well, I mean, just what everybody has said, that it is beautiful. I think one of the things that I really gravitated toward was so much of like the archival nature. So in the Grand Hall, with all of the artwork and the props of how they put the ship together, of course, the same things in 1923 of that dining restaurant. We did on the second day, because it wasn't offered until the second day, took the Walking the Wish tour and got even more of that insight in history and knowledge about the artwork, which for me, I will geek out about that because I want to know everything. And it gives a deeper context for the whole experience.
Yeah, I love those ship tours. I actually wish that they would kind of do like a self-guided audio tour somehow in the app. I think that could be really kind of a neat add-on. We've toyed around with actually just walking around with a recorder and doing our own version, putting it out there for people. But I don't feel like I'm as knowledgeable as a cast member about those ships, so I am not sure that would be really worth our while. But well, you get past first impressions. Since this is your first time on the ship, I have so many questions, even beyond the hurricane. So let's talk about the ship for a few minutes, and then we'll dive into what happened. You set off on your fantastic 3-hour tour, and things ensue. But what kind of stateroom did you have on board?
So we tend to, for better or worse, we gravitate toward a 7A. We have gotten to the point where we don't care where we are on the ship because we've done enough of these. You just give us a veranda and we are good to go. And I wasn't sure exactly how fast everything was going to go on opening day. And so literally the first 7A, grabbed it, done, did not come back and think about it again. Except for one time. And then I saw how much the price had gone up and went, nope, we are good where we are. We will stay put. So we were in 9514, so forward and starboard. This was actually the very first time we had ever sailed forward, and just had a little curiosity about how much motion we would feel. And while we'll get into the details of this, of not always being in the best water or the smoothest water, it was like silk. And Kara, you can talk. You tend to have more issue with this than I do.
Mm-hmm. I'm very prone to motion sickness. And so I start downing meclizine a couple of days before the cruise. I didn't feel a thing on this ship other than the day I did the mixology class when I was a little drunk. But otherwise, I never felt a thing the entire cruise.
Yeah, I never feel a thing until after Remy dinner with wine pairing, so I understand where you're coming from there. What did you think of the stateroom overall once you got inside? Highs and lows. I mean, I think some people have criticized and lauded different things. I'm curious what your impressions were, Gayle, of the stateroom.
So I think, we're a little different. We don't have kids when we tend to be best friend traveling together. And so I knew some of the potential aspects from people I had heard from previously. And so I'm the one who gets the sofa bed, right? So I'm super excited about drawers in the desk area that are really no longer there. And I mean, we worked around it. We very quickly said, here's your space and my space in the closet. I am flabbergasted at the door setup of the closets. That you always have to be moving two of them like at the same time to get in there. The other thing that we had started doing on the other ships is using one of the bathroom doors, leaving it open and making ourselves our own little closet changing room up at the front. And you sort of can't do that on this ship either. But I think a lot of people will agree. Biggest highlight, the night light in the bathroom.
Love that thing. I want to put it in my own house now.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a nice addition. I thought the shower was nice. I thought it was nice to have the glass enclosed shower as opposed to shower
Definitely.
curtain. Storage completely lacking for sure. One of the divisive features has been the TV, which is bigger, but at the foot of the bed and non-articulated. You can't change the angle of view. How did that work for the two of you?
Well, particularly because Gayle always takes the sofa bed. Part of that reason is because she tends to watch television before she goes to sleep, and I don't. And so, like each evening, as we wrote in our post about the trip, each evening we would both sit on the bed, and she had to come sit on the bed and watch the Weather Channel with me. She couldn't be tucked into her bed and me tucked into my bed. We had to sit over there, watch it together, and then go. It's okay, but it's dumb. We made it work, and I think you watched stuff on your iPad to go to sleep this time.
Yeah, I made sure the iPad was loaded this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just got off the Magic, and I want to say, and I might have said it in the show, I can't remember, but one of the things we love, so we were in a concierge family veranda stateroom, and one of the things I loved about that stateroom setup is it had a TV at the foot of the bed, and it had a TV in the couch area. And I was like, blew my mind. 2 TVs in a family veranda stateroom. And I was immediately like, why didn't they just do this on the Wish? If they didn't want to put the TV on an articulating arm, then put a second TV in the stateroom. Because I completely agree. There are nights when our son wants to watch a movie in bed, or we do, and he doesn't, right? And it's just kind of nice to be able to do that. So yeah, unfortunate. Well, let's move on to some other aspects of the ship. I think one we have to cover is the pool area and the water slide. Again, potentially another divisive.
This is going to be a short segment, Brian.
Was the weather just terrible the whole time on this cruise?
No, not at all.
Okay. Oh, because I remember this, Gayle. You don't like the heat.
I don't.
Kara, okay. I remember this, Kara. You don't like the heat, and so you're not going out to the pool. So give me the 30-second recap of your 30 seconds at the pool. Let me put it that way.
30 seconds is 1 second. We didn't go at all.
Really?
So
wow.
I think a couple.
We took pictures of a couple of pools. That's as close as we got.
Okay.
We were busy doing other things. They were pretty full. As everybody else has said, the adult only area, vastly too small. The one day I did want to go up to Chippendale, knowing that most people didn't know it was up there. It was closed. And it was most of the weather that we had, it was like standing in front of a hairdryer 24/7, no matter where you were. And it was almost like I don't even want to be outside, even if I'm in the pool. I think that's maybe our Midwest oversensitivity. I don't know.
Fascinating. Well,
I will commend Captain Andy though. He did a fabulous job. If you wanted to be on the pool, since we had 3 days at sea in total, is that right? Sure, yeah, something like that. He did an amazing job of keeping us in sunny weather. We just kind of did little circles behind Nassau, basically. He did an amazing job. So if you wanted to be at the pool, you could be, but it just wasn't for us on this cruise.
Fair enough. So I assume no rides on the Aquamouse then either for anyone.
No.
All right.
I was planning on it and just didn't happen.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, hey, cruising is choose your own adventure. And so if it's not your cup of tea, you don't have to do it. Well, let's talk about some of the bars on board. Lots of spaces to get coffee, lots of spaces to find a drink on board, I think. And so any standout favorites for you from a bar perspective? Kara, let me start with you.
So I was able to secure a spot in mixology while we were sitting in the embarkation area of the cruise line terminal. I stocked mixology from the day it opened to us and was never available. And somehow the second I connected to the ship Wi-Fi, there was one spot left for one show. So for one spot. So I grabbed it. Gayle doesn't enjoy drinking, so she would not have enjoyed it at all. I loved the Rose. I think it's beautiful. And that's where the mixology class took place. We really enjoyed Nightingales. We tended to navigate towards that space in the evening. Hyperspace Lounge, sorry, it's overhyped, honestly. We did not really enjoy it. I did finally make Gayle go in so I could take a picture or two, but that was about it. Did we ever sit down in the bayou?
No, we walk by a lot because, that's where you walk a lot.
Yeah. You can't avoid the bayou in most cases. Yeah.
We would normally spend a lot of time in Keg and Compass for different events and just hanging out. It's just too small, and it was just packed all the time. We had a lot of issue, and we were at the end of September where it shouldn't have been that crowded, where we would go to venues for things 15 minutes early, not a seat to be had. It was just packed.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think Disney was going for kind of that smaller, more intimate experience across different spaces, but they put very popular activities then into very small spaces, which means they got oversubscribed very quickly. And it seems like none of the spaces are actually big enough to accommodate the number of people that want to do the activity that they're scheduling in the spaces themselves. Was Hyperspace still on a reservation system for your sailing, or was it just open seating? Okay.
It had just, I think it just come off the reservations.
Yeah, what's interesting about that is we just had someone on, I think their show will come out probably ahead of yours, who's a big Star Wars fan, and he was saying his number one complaint about Hyperspace Lounge was it was hard to find. And I was thinking, I guess if they're not doing the reservations, like they didn't have, like there was when we were on board, there was a host stand out front. So like when you're walking by, you're like, oh, what's this for? It's Hyperspace. But if it's not there, it's kind of just across from the bayou, wedged in between two other venues, no windows in, and you kind of have to go down a hall. Like you can find it, but it's not prominent, I don't think.
They had a sign sitting in the doorway that basically said, no reservations, come on in, but that was it.
I wonder about the utility of that sign if it says no reservations. No wonder it's empty. Everyone thinks it's completely booked. Well, what did you said you liked the Rose, and you said that you liked, why am I missing? What's the name of
Nightingales.
Nightingales.
So you said you liked the Rose. You said you liked Nightingales. Did you get to try any of the sort of specialty drink experiences at either of those two venues?
So in the Rose, before we did Palo, I ordered one of the drinks that we'd had the day before in mixology, which was the hibiscus martini that came with the passion fruit smoke bubble on top of it. So we got to see the smoke bubble, which was kind of fun. I had to give Gayle that firsthand experience of seeing it, so I had to order another drink. It was a must do, so my friend could have that experience. It was awesome.
Hey, I was there to get the slow mo of the smoke bubble popping. I mean, I got to get one of those, so bring another one. Yeah,
that's right. That's right. And I don't. In Nightingales, did we drink? Or did I drink? I don't think so.
No.
I don't think I ordered anything because we were only in there for 15 or 20 minutes to enjoy the piano player.
I'm just curious if they've been able to restock the hand-blown bird-shaped glasses that they had when they started sailing, and they only had 3 left by the time the maiden voyage hit. So, yeah.
I didn't see those, and I was trying to pay attention to those kinds of details, so I don't remember that. And there were plenty of people around us who were enjoying beverages, so I have a feeling no.
My guess is much like the Wish embroidered napkins and the leather Wish coasters, they are gone to the ether forever. So, yeah. Well,
to appear on eBay in a couple of years.
Yeah. Well, that's tough because it's the people who took them were travel agents and influencers. So if they end up on eBay, guess who's not getting invited back next time around? So
not us. That was not us.
Not us. No, we don't do that stuff.
Disney, if you have an opening for 2, the Duo is always available. So. Let's talk about restaurants. And you brought up restaurants. You mentioned Palo. Let's skirt Palo for 1 second. Let me ask about the rotational dining experience. And we'll get in. I do want to ask some questions around the particulars of that in a sailing that was impacted by a hurricane, but just general impressions of the three restaurants: 1923, Frozen Restaurant, Arendelle, and Worlds plural of Marvel. What did you think of the three rotational dining restaurants? Gayle, maybe let me throw that one to you first.
I will do a pro and con of each. I'm a huge Marvel fan, so I was really looking forward to it until I knew the main characters of the show. The second night we were in there, of course, there was not the actual show. The second night was actually probably more of my favorite because they just showed concept artwork from the movies, comics. That was just beautiful and played the soundtrack. So it was much more low key. We tend to be, I think, a little bit more low key. Arendelle had my favorite food, which I did not expect. The show was so over the top. We had to have some comments with our head server. The second night we were in there, no show, much better. 1923, as everybody has said, too tightly packed. My goodness. Except we were right by the porthole, and with just that ambiance with the music and all the archive, that would be my favorite place to dine.
It's interesting, the tightly packed, because I think we thought all three restaurants were really sort of tightly packed, and noticed servers sort of struggling to serve, actually,
Definitely.
because of how tightly packed it was. When you say the show was over the top, just noise level in general, or what pushed it over the top for you?
Oh, go, Kara. I know you have thoughts on this.
Well, number one, there's no Olaf in this show. So
No, there was supposed to be, and ours had melted, is what I got told after the cruise.
Yeah, I've
I
heard,
missed that. Okay.
I've heard animatronic Olaf has been having difficulties, and his future in the show is a bit unclear. So.
Okay. Well, if there is no Olaf, then just undo the show, because it is just... It's just too much. It's constant. From the moment you sit down until the moment you leave, there's singing that wasn't all that pleasurable to listen to. And a show that is loosely interesting. It just was not. That restaurant is beautiful. I am not a massive Frozen fan, but we did both rewatch Frozen 2 just to make sure we knew where the storyline was before. And the restaurant makes that film and makes that set come alive in a whole new way. So I love the restaurant's decor. The menu, as Gayle said, phenomenal. But that show was just too much. The second night we got in there was such a pleasure and such a joy, because it was just a quick little meet and greet with the princesses and with Kristoff.
Yeah, Kristoff, yeah.
Although Sven would be great, but Kristoff. And, some light music playing in the background. That was perfect. They'll get that right. I said in my wrap-up post for this cruise, Disney will fix this. They will get this right.
So I have to add something that, Brian, you brought onto your cast, which is the windows. The windows that sort of aren't windows, because our table was actually at the very back near the windows, and we had taken the Walking the Wish tour, took us through there, and they said, oh, if you sort of squint and you look through the shades, you can see Rapunzel's hair from the Stern statue. And so Kara very bluntly said, when we come back here, can you guys open the windows? Can you open the windows? It's like, what are you asking for? Like, this is not what we ever do. And they're not going to want to ruin the ambiance. We came in the second night, and some of the shades were open, but not the ones where you would have seen Rapunzel from it. So there's your update on the shades of the windows in the back of Arendelle.
Yeah, we only noticed them open for disembarkation breakfast. We had disembarkation breakfast in there, and they had opened them up because it was during the day, and so you could actually see the ocean out back. I think at night it's tough, and even in is it Enchanted Garden or Enchanted Garden? They've got those nice portholes down along one side, but at night they kind of shutter them all off because they're like, you're just looking out into the pitch black, right? And I'm always like, but if the moonlight's lighting the ocean, it's kind of a nice ambiance. So so we had them. We only had them open once during the shows. They were never really open. It for me harkens back to some of the other cruise ships we've sailed on where main dining is like in a massive room on the back of the ship that has, 3-story windows towering and you're looking at the wake of the ship while you're eating kind of thing. I thought it was kind of fun. It was kind of fun to do that. Actually, it almost gives me an impression too of like a pirate ship that has the windows off the smaller windows off the back. So anyway, it's a fun touch. I wish they were open a little bit more perhaps, especially if you can see the stern character, because I don't even think I remember seeing that, but What about food quality overall on the ship? And let me just start to layer into the pool dining. Donald's Cantina, the barbecue spot, all of these things people seem to rave about. Like our impression was the food overall, like the game had changed. The bar had moved up with the Wish. But I'm curious how the food quality was on the ship overall for both of you. Kara, let me maybe start with you with that one.
So I couldn't agree more that the food quality of the new quick service dining options up on the pool decks is amazing. The barbecue was fabulous. The tacos were amazing. We actually had a bad chicken tender experience, which if you remember from our previous visit here on the podcast is like sinful on Disney Cruise. Our chicken tenders were kind of bleh. They weren't very crispy. We only got them one time because of that. So it was pretty good.
The chicken tenders,
though, they're usually always a very tender.
Well, they can't be bad on the ship that Scott Lang is actually telling you that they're life-changing. Like that's
right?
not...
Right.
That's a
they were
brand
not
failure
life-changing
right
this
there.
time. Yeah. Luckily, we've had chicken tenders so many times on the ship. We know they're fabulous, but these were not good. I actually, Arendelle, the dinner was delicious. I loved that food. It was fabulous. I don't share the sentiment that the food quality in the other two main dining restaurants is at the caliber I expect it to be from Disney. Even in 1923, well, I had the peppercorn filet, I think. It was delicious, but and it's on point with what that restaurant is themed to. I just didn't think the menu was all that tasty. So it's still delicious, and I'd eat there again in a heartbeat because I love the theming. Worlds of Marvel, I don't know if we'll ever go back. That's probably going to become either, okay, we could do Palo that night, or okay, we'll just do main dining and chill that, or quick service dining and chill that night. So it's still great food all the way around, and I ate way too much on the ship.
Yeah, I worry Worlds of Marvel is not a repeatable experience in the same way that Animator's Palette is. And people say, oh, well, the show's an Animator's Palette. Yeah, but there's something super special about Mickey wandering around and Sorcerer Mickey, and the Animation Magic show. It fundamentally changes every time to some extent because you got different characters and different drawings up there. And even the Crush show, right? I mean, the Crush show is live and active, and so very much depends on what the audience participation looks like. So I find that recorded show for Marvel and the whole PIMS generator thing on the table, it was fun the first time. I think the show would be fun to see again, but I don't know if every cruise I went on I'd want to see that show for sure. So Palo. You did Palo. Did you do Palo brunch or Palo dinner?
Dinner.
Dinner. All right. Palo Steakhouse. Gayle, what did you think about Palo Steak? Did you have a steak? Because I have heard of people who are going and getting some of the other stuff, and I'm like, you're missing the chance. So did you have a steak, and what did you think of it?
So I know, Brian, you have great expectations for what people are doing. So, of course, I did not have a steak. We're pretty much creatures of habit in Palo, which is probably not the best way to go about it. Quite frankly, I ordered the exact same thing I had ordered at the other ship Palos, and it was good. My main course is always the pappardelle with the lobster. It was good. It was not the best I'd ever had. The chocolate souffle, however, was on point as always. So I didn't feel that this was a new experience for me. What about you, Kara?
Well, I'll answer the steak question first. We're from Indiana. I live about 7 miles from St. Elmo's Steakhouse and Harry and Izzy's Steakhouse, which are two of the best steakhouses in the country. I don't need to travel to get a steak. So I guess that's one of the reasons why we're just not drawn to it when we're on the ship. The prices, though, I will say the prices in Palo Steakhouse, even though I don't love the way they have reconfigured the platinum benefit where you have to order $45 worth of food to get your benefit. The prices of those steaks are phenomenal. So if you do want to do that and get a really high value for your meal, if you're questioning the price, trust me, I know what beef at one of the best steakhouses in the country costs. It's a good price. I did the same thing. I did the Pappardelle as well. I thought the food quality was very good. We've had a couple of misses in Palo on other ships. The last couple of cruises that we've been on, this was very good. I enjoyed it. It was a very lovely evening. We're two best friends who are traveling together. Like it's not, we don't need romance or any of that sort of stuff, but it was a lovely environment. It was the only place on the ship where there was plenty of space while we were eating. That was the one thing I would say about Palo over any other space that we were in, is there was ample opportunity for the servers to move around. It's
almost, so a friend of mine that we were sailing with on the Maiden, he waited a few days and we'd experienced many of the things on board. And then he made a comment that completely changed how I viewed that whole area with Palo, Enchanté, and the Rose. And it was a really simple comment. He just said, it sort of feels like hallways that they put stuff in, right? And I was like,
yes, 100%.
And then I looked at Palo, I was like, there is a lot of space in here. They could probably fit more tables in here, but they're not, which is very fascinating to me considering the issues they're having getting people reservations on these cruises. It's even more apparent. I don't know if you peeked into Enchanté, but Enchanté, it does just sort of like we ate at a table in the front room and I was like, I feel like I'm eating in the lobby, right? Like it feels like a hallway and I'm in the lobby.
Interesting.
Right. And so it was nice. We loved it. The atmosphere was fine. I thought it was kind of fun and, understated minimalist, modern kind of thing. But at that moment I was like, it does sort of feel like these spaces are designed to be changed and redesigned much more easily than anything I've seen on some of the other ships. So I don't know if that's the intent, but that's just sort of how it felt. I will say that my two. Go ahead.
Sorry, Brian. I did miss not being able to see into the kitchen. That is something we've enjoyed on past cruises, just being able to look in there, and I did miss that.
Yeah. Oh, did we lose Gayle?
We lose Gayle.
We may have.
There she is.
Hi.
I'm sorry. I don't know what happened.
It's okay. The beauty of video. Okay. I was going to say, Kara, the two things, it's interesting because the two things I recommend very strongly to people not to miss on the Wish these days, there's so many, but the two things is one, getting a steak in Palo. I agree with you. There's, look, my wife and I, we go to all kinds of high-end restaurants, steakhouses included. She's a big steak person. And I'm sure you can get a better or as good or better steak in many other places. But I think the price of having that Wagyu steak, the size of the portion it is, especially if you're a platinum cruiser, it immediately satisfies your $45 minimum. You're basically getting your steak for free. I thought that was a really phenomenal steak at a really phenomenal price. The other thing I wanted to ask, did either of you check out the Old Fashioned bar in Hook's Barbary? Because that is something I am strongly recommending to people who enjoy bourbon or old fashions. They go check out because the bartender there is mixing bespoke old fashions and then smoking them under glass, and they are one of the best drinks I've ever had on Disney Cruise Line, to be perfectly honest. So
I do not like hard liquor at all. So,
but we saw plenty of people in there taking advantage of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really, really odd place to put a bar, but it's a good place. They make a really good drink, but it's a really odd place to have a bar. So, well, I think I got to ask about shows, but what? Let's shift gears over to talking about some of the impacts of the hurricane. And I do want to talk about shows in a minute, but I kind of want to see how the hurricane may have impacted that a little bit. So, when did the hurricane become a factor in this sailing? I mean, like night one, suddenly it's there and ever present and an issue, or is it like further into the cruise you start to learn things? Like when did it become an issue in the sailing?
Kara, go ahead.
Okay. I can tell who is going to go. It was bizarre, actually. We had gone up to the deck 12. Were we on 12?
Yep.
Yes. We'd gone up to deck 12 for the sail away party. And right before that started, Captain Andy came on and said, we just want to let you know, kind of while you still have phone service, that we anticipate we're probably not coming back on Friday like we planned.
Well, we would be late on Friday, is what he said at that.
That's right. That's right. And so if you can arrange with your carrier to take a later flight, maybe you should do that now. We were shocked. And because once you're inside the bubble, nothing bad is happening to you. And they don't admit that the world is going on outside. So we were pretty shocked that that happened. Now, most people were just like, okay, whatever. I don't remember seeing a ton of people picking up their phone and being like, oh my gosh. Yeah. So
that definitely, it was just like, okay. Or I would say our sailing was maybe 50-50 new sailors and past sailors. So I'm not sure that some people even had an understanding of what that referred to.
Okay. Interesting. Do you know how many people were on the sailing? Was it a full sailing or was it a reduced sailing?
I think we were probably about 85% is what I had sort of randomly heard.
I mean, I got to figure it's after school started, which is usually kind of a slower period, but also some number of people probably canceled or moved the trip in light of the hurricane. So yeah, interesting. All right. So, well, at Sail Away, the hurricane becomes a factor. We already know the cruise gets extended to a 6-night sailing from a 4-night sailing. So how did they message that? Was that an incremental drip and drab of, well, now we're not going to get it on Friday, we're going to get it on Saturday? Or was it just at some point Disney said, nope, like, sorry, we're not coming back until Sunday? Like, how did they message that out to passengers? And was the mood spontaneous and instant joy and excitement? Or was the mood kind of mixed? Like people probably plan vacation time and things like that. And so are they like, I'm sure there's some trepidation on board, but yeah, how was it announced and what was the mood like on board once it was?
Let me tell this part. So we were in the Walt Disney Theater waiting for The Little Mermaid to begin. And I've also heard this story from a guest who was dining in Arendelle at the exact same time. So, theater is absolutely packed. There's not a seat to be had. You hear the chimes come over, and everybody at this point now understands what the "When You Wish Upon a Star" chimes mean. And hush just falls over the theater, because if you're a repeat cruiser like us, you're like, this is not normal. This is not what happens. And Captain Andy comes on again and gives what I will always call a masterclass in communication and emotional intelligence of saying, in light of what is happening and keeping your safety as the number one priority, as safety is the number one priority of the Walt Disney Company, we need to let you know, based on port operations, because we have to get permission from the port to come back, that we will not be returning on Friday. It will be Saturday, most likely Sunday, that we will be returning. And Brian, you and I and Kara, we have been on many of these sailings in many theaters where these shows have been epic. I have never heard the crowd erupt like they did in that moment. It was like the buzzer shot of the Final Four game, except that we look over and there's a family diagonal from us, and it's like mom, dad, and the 3 princess daughters are in the middle, and the dad just looks like you have tortured him at this point with this news.
He was the only person on the ship that was unhappy, I think. I don't know what they were dealing with back home, but something did not work well in his life.
Yeah.
It was kind of reminiscent of the Kermit the Frog sort of freaking out. And then the cruise director comes on and basically said, Captain Andy just told you everything I was going to tell you, and on with the show. And the curtain went up and we had our show.
I gotta believe that the mood was mostly joyous, right? I mean, it's sort of like you just won the Disney lottery. You got, two free nights on Disney Cruise Line, which, is unheard of. And I totally want to agree with something you said, Gayle, which, I think an announcement during a show in the theater, if they're not live and up on stage is, those chimes go off. They don't interrupt dinner time or theater shows for announcements unless it's something important. Second time is if they're coming over your stateroom announcements after you've left port. That's also usually something very important and you need to pay attention to it. So what happens? I'm so curious what happens from there, right? In terms of like things that the cruise line did or provided, because, look, some people pack for a 4-night cruise. They're not packed for a 6-night cruise. So what goes on with like making sure people have clean clothes to wear? I'm always curious. I mean, you should bring extra medication, but I don't know what happens if you haven't, internet to deal with the travel arrangements and things like that. So like what happened? Like what sorts of things happened on board to help sort of, I don't say ease the pain, because staying on board for another 2 nights isn't necessarily painful, but, provide some things that people might need in order to accommodate these extra 2 nights in their vacation. Maybe let me start with you, Gayle.
So we had decided very quickly that we weren't going to do anything, because until we knew for certain when we were coming back, there was nothing for us to do. So we just kept in cruise mode. Other people did not respond in that way. And so once we did know, which we'll get to that point, that we did know we were going to come back at the normal time of day on Sunday, I went, okay, it's early in the morning. I'm going to go down to guest services and see how bad it is, because they're going to have to open the internet, right? And so I didn't have that long of a wait, got down there. As you would expect, they were very accommodating. And they said, would you like to either step down and use the phones that we have, which most of the older guests were using, or we're going to go ahead and, okay, you want internet, we're going to go ahead and give you the middle package of that. And so he said, sign up for it on your phone. We're immediately going to reverse the charges, and you will have that complimentary through the duration of the cruise. I thought they would give it to us for 1 day. We did only have it for one device. So it was actually very easy for us to log out, log on to the other one, and go in that way. The second thing that I will mention is they went ahead and brought us our gratuity envelopes on Friday. And they had no expectation that you were going to get charged the 2 extra nights of gratuities, which I think a lot of us went down and said, no, we're not going to short the crew. Although I had heard the cruise line was going to go ahead and pay the crew their extra 2 nights for that. And then, Kara, I don't know if you want to tackle some other things with phone and airline and the laundry.
Yeah. So we had more than enough clothes to get through the cruise without any difficulty. We're sort of masterful at the mix and match sort of clothes thing, so it wasn't a big deal for us. We did, though, as we were doing some of the tours around the ship, we checked out the world's fanciest laundry room at sea on deck 8. And I know that people don't like that there's only one on the ship, but it's really as laundry rooms go, it's pretty gorgeous. Yeah. We did a video tour of it, so we've got that on my website.
I had to eat my words about the laundry, because I was like, why? What? And I walked through and I was like, this right here. They needed a giant laundry when a cruise gets extended. Here we are.
Yeah. So if you needed it, there wasn't like a rush on it. When we walked in, I think there were 3 or 4 washers and dryers going and somebody using an iron. So there was plenty of space and accommodation. I don't know if they made extra accommodation for it or not, but it was there. When Gayle came back to the room with the internet access, I hopped on to my phone and updated both of our flights. We were on separate reservations, so I just had to log in and do that twice. It took, I don't know, probably 10 minutes, and on both flights were fixed. And because I'd booked my flight with points, I had to just work with the airline afterwards and get those refunded, but that was no big deal either. So it was super easy. We did see a lot of older cruisers who were on the phone, hearkening back to our 2010 experience, where it was a 1-day delay. It's still handled well by Disney, but that was back before the internet was even reasonably high quality. They opened the internet up to everybody, but it was hard to even get online to email back home or to do stuff. And that cruise will always have cemented in my mind folks standing in line waiting for the phone in the atrium at guest services. There was none of that on this cruise. Certainly there were a couple of lines at guest services, but it was never bad any time that we went through there. And we wandered all over this ship every single day. So it was never that bad at all.
It got worse as each day progressed.
Yeah.
Of people finally getting in line. They did not open the internet just, hey, here's the internet for everybody on the ship, very smartly, because it was, I don't know what it would have been like if there weren't as many people on it. It worked. It was slow. I cannot fathom that it would have handled if suddenly everybody had access to it.
Right.
Did you have a port stop after they made this announcement, or was your port stops done by this point?
So...
besides Castaway Key, I'm curious. I'm thinking about people who might have said oh God, I missed my 2 days of medication. I need to find a pharmacy or something. Did you have a stop in Nassau after, or had that already happened? Gayle?
I'm always waiting on Kara to go, and she's not going. So, no, we'd already gone to Nassau. And so the announcement we just got, that came Tuesday night. But Wednesday morning, the chimes came on in the stateroom again, because Wednesday morning, the ship, I think, woke everybody up because, man, I said, if we are feeling this vibration on 9 forward, I cannot imagine what's happening in the aft of the ship right now. And it's because they were attempting to dock at Castaway, and that ended up being a failure. So we did not have Castaway on Wednesday. However, they came on and very quickly said, we're going to try again on Saturday.
2 shots. You got 2 shots at it. Well, that's nice.
But they did not add any additional stops anywhere.
Okay.
We did have a weird sort of emergency stop in Nassau. Was that Thursday night?
Friday night?
Friday night. I don't know.
Friday.
The days did really start to mix together Friday night. The captain had come on and said, we're going to make a stop in Nassau. It's just going to be a stop and go. And we were having dinner in 1923 that night. And so we were a port window and we could see, we docked, and an ambulance came up alongside the ship, went down to the end, and then left. And then we pulled right back out. So I assume there was some sort of medical emergency. Obviously, it wasn't so terrible that we didn't move any faster. You can tell when the ship picks up speed, and we definitely didn't pick up speed, but they clearly wanted to help someone get off the ship in Nassau. So they did that for a medical reason, but that was the only stop we made other than Castaway later in the week.
So you alluded to, at some point you find out you are firmly coming home on Sunday. The decision has been made. When did that happen on board? Maybe let me ask you that, Kara.
I'm going to look at Gayle because I don't remember.
It was either Wednesday night or Thursday morning. We had we knew far in advance that we were coming back on Sunday, and us being sort of the Disney nerds that we are, said, how many other ships are coming back? So we heard there were sort of 5 ships that we were all out together because we saw some of them in Nassau and when we came back to Nassau. And I immediately said, I bet it's not going to be Saturday because the Fantasy's going to be at our terminal. We came back in 2010 and we did have to debark at a different terminal because there were 2 Disney ships in, but that actually is what happened this time.
Okay. And I'm also curious, I'm also curious about sort of what changes on board at this point too, because now, look, you've got 2 more nights of restaurants, 2 more nights of entertainment. And if I know anything about Disney, it's going to be the party continues, right? Like this is not going to become
Right.
a dour situation and, all that sort of stuff. Like it's going to be like any other Disney cruise. I've heard they keep enough provisions on board on any of these ships for like up to 2 weeks of sailing at any given time. So I'm assuming like no food ran out, but like what happened in terms of like menu offerings in these restaurants? Because she is not set up for 7-night sailing. So presumably they don't have much by way of alternative menus on board. They've got 3 rotational menus in Pirate Night if you're on a 4-night sailing, and that's it. So did they start repeating menus, or did they get some new menus out? And what about shows and entertainment and that sort of thing? So yeah, Gayle, go ahead.
No, I want Kara to talk about the activity changes that got made with this.
Okay.
Yeah. So Glenn, our cruise director, came out sort of giddy about all the changes that they were going to make. I think they told us the morning announcement when Castaway Key got sort of rained out. That was the first time that Glenn came on in the morning into the stateroom, is like, but don't worry, in 30 minutes, check the app, refresh it, and we've got a whole swath of new things for you. And so we got to see a custom show that I don't think exists anywhere else on Disney Cruise Line. I honestly think they kind of put that together right on the spot. We got to do Disney Dance Camp.
He was very specific that they had to get approval to add some special things that would normally just be on the Transatlantic or a Panama. So then we got excited too.
They did a game show, a villain thing. You poked your head into that. What was that?
Villain Game Night. Apparently they are starting to test and pilot to actually put on the ship permanently. But it was not ready to go, and they were very specific. No photos, no video, anything of this game show. So they were serious.
Wow. And what was the theater production that they did that was sort of unique?
It was called the Victrophonics. Did I get that name right? Yes. And I'm really sad that other people didn't be like, okay, Disney's going to do something cool here, because the theater was pretty indie for it. One of the dancers came out and did tap. They had 2 vocalists, and then they had a keyboard, drummer, and a couple of instrumentalists who were from different musical groups around the ship. And they came together and they did a selection of sort of jazzed up Disney melodies they kind of gave it sort of a 40s, 20s to 40s kind of vibe. But it's tons of fun, excellent performances. We both love tap, so it was fun to see that. We love the live music, so it was a great little show. And I honestly think they just pulled magic out of a hat and did that. I don't think they had done that anywhere else before. They printed some cool little banners off on the computer and stuck them on all the stuff to make a pretty stage show. Pulled a wood tap mat out so that you could hear the taps while she was tapping. Clearly and I always say the multimedia audiovisual crew, they do such a great job on these ships anyway, but they went above and beyond to make sure we had some fun things to do and did a great job with that. So it was fun.
They pulled out the napkin folding and the towel animals that were not scheduled, but we know are on the other ones. And then the one that I was super excited about, because we've only done this on one other sailing, was Disney Dance Camp, because I do have that in my background. And so they had 3 dancers from the stage show. We all met up in Hero Zone, which was the perfect venue for this. And they taught us the last, 64 bars or something of Under the Sea from the Little Mermaid show. And wow, that music is fast. And we were even beside another cruiser. The woman said, I moved our Palo reservation just to come to this. And her husband is just rolling his eyes. But I absolutely loved that. So that was special for me.
Nice. Did they do anything special with characters? Did they put them out in any like unique costumes or anything like that? Or
not unique costumes, but man, if you missed a character sighting on this, like if you didn't see characters, that was because you didn't leave your stateroom. They were everywhere all the time. The show team did an amazing job, and they had to have been exhausted after this. So
Well, yeah. Well, and to go back to something you said, I'm really pleased to hear at least a rumor that Disney took care of the crew in terms of their tips, because that was when I saw online that they were extending the sailing, there was a little bit of a debate going on around people about like who should pick up the tab here. And I actually, fully support people who went down and, said, I want to make sure the crew get compensated. That's great. But I also recognize not everyone can do that. Some people have budgeted to be on this cruise, and the 2 additional nights of gratuities may just be something they can't do, don't want to do, which is another conversation. But I think Disney should absolutely backstop in a moment of emergency to say, look, we've made the decision here, so we want to make sure that you guys get your tips. Because I would have been really scratching my head if Disney had let them go without their tips, because that impacts crew morale. And then crew morale, bad crew morale means bad customer experience. So, yeah.
Speaking of good crew morale, to add on to that, we had been extended 2 nights, but there was supposed to be a 3-night that came after us. So we knew that the schedule was now completely off. And so we asked our server and head server, which we'd had each of them on prior sailings. And we said, does this mean that you get Sunday night off? Because there's not going to be any guests on board. The crew was quite excited that they did know they were getting the night off. They just weren't sure if they were going to be permitted to leave the ship or not.
Oh, that'd be a bummer. Or at least let them use guest spaces. I know sometimes on the night
that they were going to get that.
Yeah.
They would get some entertainment up on the main deck and get to enjoy some time together.
Yeah. Well, one space I'm realizing, actually 2 spaces that we haven't talked about, but one in particular, since I think the last time you were both on, we were talking about relaxation on a Disney cruise. And I asked whether anyone had been to the spa, and the answer I think was from Gayle that she had gotten the smoothie. But I wanted to find out if either of you gave the rainforest room a go on the Wish, because it's a major upgrade on board. Did anyone try out the rainforest room on board?
Took a great picture of the outdoor spa area from the deck 6 forward. That was fabulous with the Mickey topper. Right. But no, we did not do the spa. And I think there were lots of extra spa bookings and lots of extra appointment bookings on this cruise because of that. We did talk about it, but we just decided, there's other stuff we wanted to do. And they were adding so many activities that we just didn't feel like the need for it.
Well, it's like Brian, the lottery within the lottery, because the people who bought that 3-night spa rainforest room pass just got a 6-nighter. So there you go.
Yep. I do want to fill in, because this has been a topic when we've been on here before. We did do 2 things on this sailing that we had never done before. Kara, you want to talk about those?
Why don't you start?
She forgot. So because we went to the shows and we were doing some things later into the evening where we were still awake and we knew we now had more time. Okay, now go.
We went to Match Your Mate.
Fabulous.
Finally. We'd never done that, which was made even more special because the oldest couple featured was from Indiana. And so we didn't know them, but we knew places they spoke of and things like that. So it was hilarious. I have not laughed that hard in a really long time. And then Gayle will tell you about the other thing we did that was new.
We finally went to Silent DJ. And they're having Silent DJ in Hero Zone, which, again, is the perfect location because there is so much space. And so if there's big groups, if there's little groups, if you just want your corner by yourself, we even turned it up a notch. We decided during Silent DJ, we were also going to try to play ping pong in the offshoot room. So, wow. We took a little video that shall never be seen in public ever again, but we had a really good time.
But it's on my YouTube channel if you check it out.
Okay, good.
Oh, no.
I was going to say, what can I put down here for a Patreon exclusive? There you go. So it actually leads me to ask what you thought about Hero Zone, another unique space on Disney Wish. I think it sounds like you thought it was a great space for some of these activities, but what did you think about the Hero Zone overall, Kara?
So we were probably in there 5 or 6 times, which is, I mean, more visits to a sports themed area on a ship than we've probably ever done in total on 15 and 17 previous sailings. The upper deck has air hockey and foosball and some other things. We played air hockey once or twice. We went in and watched Incredible games and saw that. We did not choose to participate in that. Definitely, if you want to do the Incredible course, pack your grippy socks so that you can do that later. And tons of fun. Like the crew has to, we talk about this all the time. Like the crew has to hate having to get that Incredible Zone course out and blow that thing up and keep it up, because it kind of wafted a couple of times while we were there watching. They've got
it has this alarm on it, and the alarm kept going off. And on top of the music and the people being excited and the commentators. So it was certainly the most lively venue we'd ever been on a Disney ship.
Yeah.
Was it like an underinflation alarm or something?
Yes. Because it's an immediate safety issue, because you could sort of fall over the side when it deflates. So it's, and they were on it. The second it happened, they're like, nope, everybody come back. We got to check this out. So, you see, this is one of the things I do love about Disney is you just see that value of safety everywhere. And on this ship, just because of the overarching concern with the hurricane, we certainly saw that front and center in so many places. But I think Hero Zone is a masterful design. We took more time in there than we've ever been in sports related spaces. We love putt-putt. I kind of was like, oh, I wish we could do putt-putt. That's the only thing I miss. Yeah. But there's so much more value, I think, in Hero Zone that you don't get when you don't have that space.
I mean, what's interesting about it is you described it as a sports space. I actually step back and it's a multi-purpose space, which
it is.
The sports courts weren't before, really, because they were outdoors and all that sort of stuff. So I love that aspect. I mean, it's almost like if they wanted to, they could put a putt-putt course out for a few hours, right? One day. I mean, I think it opens up possibilities, which is always kind of fun when it comes to the ships. I wanted to ask you about one more space that's been a little divisive, which is Luna, the 2-story theater / whatever they want it to be space. Gayle, what did you think about Luna? We've been hearing mixed reactions to that space.
I mean, everybody, talks about the openness of it, which it does pull people in as you're walking by. Hey, what's going on in here? Do I want to stop for this? Do I not want to stop? So I think having that space is great. We looked at it and went, you took that space, and so Triton's Lounge and Keg and Compass are now too small for what you are needing that to be. We were in Luna on both the bottom deck and the top deck of it for a couple of different events. The top deck, it's a little bit like the theater, that you actually don't want to sit in the first row because you've got all the railing that's impeding you. But I don't know, it's almost multi-purpose-esque of what they can do in there. So I see the value in there, and we saw lots of times where it was packed. And so I don't know if that's good that it's popular or bad that there's not enough space to accommodate everybody.
Yeah, it's fair. I mean, again, to go back to something you said earlier, it's interesting. Like bingo in there was a nightmare. I mean, there was no room. But then again, I look at it and go, bingo on the other ships is a nightmare. I mean, it's not there's the one activity that everyone seems to want to do, and they don't have a space on the ship that can accommodate everyone, unless you're going to, I mean, even the Walt Disney Theater won't accommodate everybody. So, I'm not sure what they do there. I'm looking forward to getting back on in April, and I actually want to spend a little bit more time in Luna. We didn't on the Maiden and the DVC cruise because, COVID was still so prevalent, and we were so nervous about being able to get on the back-to-back with all the testing and everything that we avoided any crowd at any cost. And so I want to check out some of that spaces. I want to try the downstairs. I want to try the upstairs. I'm personally super intrigued by the booths upstairs that have TVs in them so you can watch what's going on. Because I've always thought it would be interesting to like sort of make that the extension of Keg and Compass. Like, let me get a beer and go sit in a booth with my friends, and then you can kind of match your mate or whatever's going on down on the stage without sort of having to be like, feel like you kind of like peer down and see it kind of thing?
I didn't see
those
it.
booths always had like, well, the booths had, but every time I walked by the booths, they had outside television playing and not the show.
Really, the ones in Luna? The ones in Luna?
Yeah, because it's one of the reasons I didn't suggest. I mean, we're a party of two anyway, but I also just didn't suggest we sit in those because you can't see, and they were always showing television.
That's a missed opportunity.
I don't know if I walked by and purposefully paid attention while a show was going on to see if they had the show on. I don't know.
My expectation was they would have like cameras mounted downstairs that would just play what was on the stage, so that if you're sitting in there and you can't get the view, you can like sit in the booth and kind of watch what's going on. Yeah, interesting. Well, I'd
love to hear if you do that in April, Brian. I can't wait to hear if that's what they do or not, because I don't remember that. But that would be a cool place to watch them from, because they're cool little venues. They're like little mini venues all on their own.
Yeah. Well, so we know, I mean, spoiler alert, we know you ended up docking at Castaway Cay, which is a fabulous way to cap off any cruise, in my opinion. Know you made it home safely on Sunday and everyone got off okay. Is there anything about the sailing that we haven't talked about that the two of you wanted to be sure to highlight? Since Gayle is nodding vigorously, I'm going to start with her. So Gayle, go ahead.
So this was not only an activity, but is now what I have nicknamed this entire sailing, which was Uncharted Adventure.
Oh, yes. You got to play it all the way through. Yes. I want to hear all about it.
So I think they had finally turned it on, if you will, only one or two sailings before us. And when they had announced this on the initial announcement of the ship years ago, this was the one thing I was really excited about. And I knew if it wasn't on our sailing, I was going to be really disappointed. So we decided to literally carve out a big chunk of time because we didn't know what it was going to entail. And I will say, when you're going into it, unlike midship, where you can just go down, grab your cards and your sheet, and you take off and you go, this takes some setup. And for the two of us, it took us about 10 minutes to get it set up because every player has to create an avatar. So you get to customize that whole thing. And then it does.
Welcome to the Disney Cruise Line metaverse. Yes. Okay.
Yes, exactly. Which means every active player has to have their own cell phone. This is definitely unlike midship, where it's very accommodating to virtually all ages. This is a little bit more mature. So the littlest cruisers, this is probably not going to be for them unless they're just going to be observing. It did function like midship, where it's telling you where you're going next on the ship. But when you're getting to the magical artwork, there's a gamification aspect to it. So if you are not used to picking up your phone and using it as a game controller, that takes a couple of minutes to go, wait, is it forward, backward, sideways? Am I tilting and turning? And so there were two of us, and a lot of these things that we had to do, we were also competing against each other, and we were earning points, and it was totaling up the points, and the points were going with us. So there's all of these new aspects. If you wanted to do it by yourself, you could. It was really built to be for a team. You did have to have a leader to lead your team on a quest. So you always had to assign who the leader was with that. I will say, because the phone was so much more active, when we were going from place to place, I had to turn the screen off on my phone because my phone was getting so hot. But when we got to the next space and reloaded it, it picked up exactly where we had left off. We only had to reload the game, if you will, a couple of times. We only had one magical artwork that we couldn't get it to work with us, and it accommodated that. It just sent us someplace else. So from a Disney technology standpoint, I was overwhelmingly happy and surprised at how well this worked.
Yeah. Did you hit any glitches along the way? Because that was, the concern with it initially was it was just way too unstable for people to use, and that's why they didn't have it active on like the Maiden or any of the early sailings.
I was prepared for this to be a nightmare, because if something like that doesn't work, one of us in this partnership is very angry about it. And I was prepared to be like, okay, this afternoon we're going to go like run around the decks to get that anger out. It worked beautifully. I think you had to reset yours once or twice. I had to reset and you're on iOS, I'm on Android. So I had to reset mine a couple of times. The resets worked just fine. It was just, restart the app. It was no big deal. And it was fun. I will say the only thing I still don't understand, and maybe Gayle, maybe you caught this, I don't know what the points were for. I don't know if we won anything or lost anything. Was that in the final show?
So it was in the final show. So at the end of the sailing somewhere, ours popped up on Friday. So I don't know when it was supposed to actually. There were 2 offerings of Battle for the Wishing Star. And so it was promoted as, if you have been playing this, especially if you've completed it, this is the culminating event. And so you come down and the characters are animated and on the screen, trying to help figure out what the solution was to the whole thing. So I won't give any of that away. And then at the very, very, very end, after, they've defeated the villain and the ship is safe and we will continue on with our merry cruise, they would show like these leaderboards of who had the most points doing X or who had the fastest completion of X.
Oh, that's right. We weren't on any of those.
We were not on any of those. But they didn't make a big deal about it. It was not like trivia. There was no winner. There were no medals or awards or anything like that. And on that note, trivia has a whole new slate of medal awards.
We heard this. We've heard this. Yeah, the new medals floating around. Yeah. For Uncharted Adventure, I'm curious. So you mentioned the setup. Is it all within the Disney Cruise Line app, or do you have to get a different app down on your phone before you get on board?
So I had read in advance that you had to have the Disney Parks, the Play Disney Parks app.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we had it, but it seemed as though that is not where it was based, that it was based out of the Cruise Line app.
And how long did it take to play? Estimate? Like, was this a half-hour distraction?
There are no estimates here. There are no estimates here. We detail time to this. It was an hour it was an hour and 36 minutes on the first day for the first 2 adventures, and an hour.
So including the setup, and the first 2 quests.
Okay. I got the wrong word. And then it was an hour and 8 minutes on the second day for the second 2 quests. So
that's pretty. I mean, so one person we talked to, it said, it's not like midship because you don't get different, storylines or whatever. But if you've got multiple quests, then it is like midship detective agency.
There were 4 different storylines. And the great thing about this that I still love doing midship. I will do it again the next time we're on those ships, but you kind of know what's going to happen. You kind of know where it's going to take you. You kind of know what's going to happen. They can add more quests to this. So the next time we're on, we could do 4 new quests. And it could be a completely different experience with completely different games because they're gamifying virtual and non-virtual artwork. I think I can say that safely without giving anything away.
Oh, fascinating. Well, I know Sam cannot wait to play this thing when we're on board next. So she will be excited to hear this segment, although she doesn't listen to our podcast. So maybe I'll force her to listen to this one. But yeah, I know she's excited to play. So really, really cool to hear that it worked and that it seemed interesting and fun and a little hassle with the setup, but otherwise seemed pretty smooth. I assume once you set up once, is it set up for you the next time you play? Yeah.
And it wasn't, and I will say it's just, it's setting up the beginning of any game. You got to pick your hair color and I got to customize now because I didn't have pink hair when I did it the last time. So it's just that kind of stuff. It's not hard. It just, if you have somebody that's going to obsess over which shoes you're wearing in the app, then, it could take longer, but otherwise it's not that big a deal.
To your point, every game has setup, every game has a tutorial. Like you can't just start playing the game without, most cases.
Right.
So, well, I think we've got to that point in the show where we need to do a little rapid fire. And since Sam's not here, I guess you're stuck with me. I will say that I am less arbitrary. It's still no rules. But I'm going to focus on just Disney Wish favorites since we've been talking about the Wish this whole time. So let's talk about some Disney Wish favorites. So let me start with, what was your favorite bar on board the ship? Oh, Kara. Wait, hold on. Let me do that again. Let me start with Kara. What was your favorite bar on board the ship?
The Rose.
the rose. Gayle.
Nightingales.
Nice. All right. Favorite rotational dining restaurant? Gayle, let me start with you.
I have to pick 1923 from the ambiance alone.
Okay. Kara?
Arundel, but only because we got the second night because we were delayed, and that menu is fantastic.
Yeah. Love the sea scallop dish that everyone raves about. Although I didn't realize it was on the menu for the Magic. It's in Rapunzel's on the Magic. And we were like, our minds were blown. We're like, this existed before. We thought it was brand new. So there you go. We just hadn't been on the Magic. What was your favorite? What was your favorite show on board? Kara?
Oh, that's hard. I'm going to go with The Little Mermaid. I know it's getting knocked some. I thought the cast knocked it out of the park. It was beautiful.
Yeah, divisive show for sure, but I can't, like, you're putting on a Broadway style show at sea, you get a little slack, even from someone like me. So, Gayle, favorite show?
I'm also going to say The Little Mermaid because there was one point in the show after one of the huge production numbers that also had some emotional pull that I just felt that. And I immediately thought, this is why I cruise Disney Cruise Line. This right here.
Nice. Favorite quick service dining on board? Gayle?
All of those. Like that Mickey and Friends Festival flavors. We only went to Marceline once, maybe twice. And I don't need to go to Marceline ever again. Like, bless them for what they do. But I just am blown away at what they did with that quick service. Yeah.
Marceline is a great spot to go grab your morning coffee. I will say that. But I think they missed the opportunity with Marceline. I think they hyped it as one thing and they essentially recreated cabanas. And for me, that just missed the mark on Marceline. So, Kara, favorite quick service dining?
You know what? I'm going to give an odd one because we didn't actually end up eating it inside out at all because we enjoyed the ice cream, which is odd. We never do the ice cream stands on the other ships. Soft serve, thank you. The soft serve on the other ships. And we really enjoyed it and had a couple of less than adequate experiences in Joyful Suites. And so chose not to do that. So I'm going to give my kudos to the ice cream, the soft serve stand.
Yeah, I love that the soft serve stand on the Wish actually has more machines so they can keep more flavors going. You don't have to be like, is today strawberry banana day or not? Yeah, I love that. All right. Favorite onboard activity? Kara, let me start with you.
Only because it was so special and it made Gayle so incredibly happy. I was so glad we got to do dance camp on this cruise. So huge shout out to the crew for making that happen.
Nice.
Clearly, I agree with that completely, even though it's not a regular offering.
Nice. All right. Favorite just space on board the ship, Gayle?
This is a little tough one because I think this is where all of those sort of questions and concerns about the layout come into play. There was never one place that I just kept gravitating back toward. So I have a non-answer for you right now.
All right. Kara?
Yeah, I'll say Nightingales just because we did end up in there sort of when we needed a place to hang in the evenings as we were moving between activities. But we have that spot on every other ship and we haven't figured out what that is on the Wish yet.
Fair enough. All right. Well, my last question in rapid fire before I have just two more brief questions for you. But my last question in rapid fire is going to be, where does the Disney Wish rate for you across the rest of the Disney fleet? So Kara, where does it, Gayle, where does it fall for you?
So in context, we love filling out the survey at the end of the cruise. Like nerd status right here. And they were always like, please go do this. No. We have carved out time to do this. So we sat on our veranda to do it this time and had this very discussion and said, any Disney cruise is better than just about all of the other things that we could pick to do. But where does it fall in line compared to the other ships? And for me, it's not near the top. Okay. I will put the experiences and the destinations that we get on the magic and the fantasy above that. But we also really like the longer cruises, and the Wish perhaps will never do that. We'll see.
Yeah, no, that's fair. It's we're doing longer cruises on the Wish, but we're doing them as back-to-back sailings, which is then a little bit of Groundhog Day because you're constantly in Nassau. So I think we're itching to get back to Europe. I think we can't wait to experience Alaska, and crossing our fingers that perhaps those Australian sailings get a little bit better as they go along through the years. So Kara, where does it fall for you? Same spot, basically?
It's the same spot. I would rather be on a longer sailing, and I enjoy the environments of the other ships. The Wish is definitely not off my list. If we have other opportunities to be on there and it goes somewhere interesting, go back in a heartbeat. But I'm not going to choose it just because it's the Wish.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, what's next? What's next for the two of you? You always seem to have a fabulous cruise out ahead. Where are we headed next, Gayle?
Well, it's very sad because right now we have nothing actually reserved, and I don't remember the last time we had this. But we are waiting to see a couple of things that hopefully in February, either another Marvel Day at Sea now on the Dream, or because of wanting the longer cruises, taking a Pixar Day at Sea on the Fantasy. We'll have to see what pops up and which one we choose.
Fair enough. Yeah. I'm hoping there's another round of itinerary. It feels like we're getting less and less itineraries as the post-COVID era progresses, that they've slowly shaved us down to less than a year's worth of stuff that we can book. And that always makes me anxious. So I'd love to see a little bit more breathing room there for sure. But yeah. Well, Gayle, I know you are a fabulous travel specialist yourself. And so I wanted to give you a chance to let folks know where they can find and connect with you and all of your travels if they want to book a fabulous Disney cruise vacation. So do you want to let folks know where they can find you?
Sure. My name is Gayle Hartleroad, and it's Gayle with a Y. And I am with Off to Neverland Travel, and I'm most easily found at facebook.com/Gayle.offtoneverland.
Fabulous. And Kara, you've mentioned your website a few times now. Do you want to let folks know where they can find and connect with you as well?
Sure. I am a coach and creative problem solving specialist, and you can find me at iwannabemewhenIgrowup.com.
Nice. Love it. Love that. It's awesome. Well, thank you both as always for coming on. I know, Gayle, you reached out while you were on board and asked if we wanted to chat with you. And we always want to chat with you and Kara. It's fabulous. So thank you for sharing your story with us and for coming on today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for the time.
Thanks,
we
Brian.
appreciate it, Brian.